you so much for agreeing to this interview and for sharing a little bit of your work with the Sapsuquatla GYO program. I'm here with Jessica Towns-Camara, and I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and sharing your tribal affiliations, and then launching into the really good work that you are doing.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure to get to speak with everyone the other day. And it was really inspiring to me to see those gears turning as educators, that how can we bring the idea of mission, vision, and values into the work that we do. So I will introduce myself. I'm Jessica Towns-Camara. I am a volunteer program manager for Pacific Northwest Alutiiq Culture Camp, and then I also am the owner and artist of Bougie Alutiiq, which is a native crafts jewelry company. My education is I got a Bachelor of Arts in Native Studies from the Evergreen State College back in 2003, back when I was young. And then just recently, kind of during the pandemic, I decided, well, why not? And went back to school, to an online school called Western Governors University, and got a master's in management and leadership, which really sort of inspired me to create mission and vision and values. It was, I actually incorporated doing the mission, vision, and values for my program into my coursework. So I was able to do that. My family is, my mom is Ingrid Hansen. My dad is Randy Towns. My mom is Sochpiak, and we have been, like, our matrilineal line is Sochpiak from as far back as time, basically. We are from Ugashik Pilot Point, and I say both of those places because Ugashik was the village that was before, and then when Alaska Packers came in, they built a cannery, and everybody moved down there for the work. My dad's link goes back to Scotland, basically, and just super Scotch-Irish. I grew up in Washington State, so I did not grow up in Alaska. I grew up here in Washington State, and I am an enrolled member of the Native Village of Pilot Point. And so we kind of got into what are mission, vision, and values. And a mission statement communicates the purpose of your organization. Your vision statement gives insight into what the organization would like to achieve or become in the future. And the values reflect the core ethics and how is your organization going to conduct their business. You know, what in what way. So kind of their principles, I suppose. And for Pacific Northwest Alutiiq Culture Camp, our mission statement is to provide community for Alutiiq people residing outside traditional homelands by delivering both in-person and online opportunities that will reawaken traditional ways of being, help Alutiiq Selk'piak people root themselves in their cultural identity, improve health outcomes, build multi-generational community connections, encourage respect for the environment, and promote the active use of the Alutiiq language. So this is what we hope that we're doing currently. I feel like a mission statement is also something that if we're not doing these things, people can hold our feet to the fire a little bit and say, hey, in your mission statement, it says that you're doing this, and I think maybe you're not, you know, right now, or in this way, I felt disappointed about this. So, you know, it's a tool to kind of keep you flying right, but it also can, you know, help other people see if you are following through on what you say that you're doing. It's essentially your thesis for your organization. And then our vision statement is Pacific Northwest Alutiiq Culture Camp connects Selk'piak people to each other, their culture, and their community through revitalizing cultural practices and language rather. And this is just the long-term vision. It's kind of basic, but it's basic and big, you know. So it's pretty aspirational, considering that our language is somewhat I don't like to use the word dormant, but it is somewhat dormant. I think that in my region, which is the Bristol Bay area, maybe there's 4, 5 people, elders that still speak. 4 or 5. In the Kodiak area, I think it's about 20. In the Chugach area, it's probably something similar, 20, 25, somewhere in there. So, in total, less than 100 people, like far less than 100 people who speak our language. So the Pacific Northwest Alutiiq Culture Camp values. The values of camp are centered on the people, the land, and the culture, with the goal that we will pass the Khliak culture down to our future generations. So you can see here, we've decided to center our native value systems and the focus that we have, like, on the people as a whole and community, and also on the land. So those values include courage to reclaim our culture, language, and ways of being, collaboration, partnership with and support of other Native people and organizations, inclusiveness. All Sugpiaq people are Sugpiaq enough. So basically all Native people are Native enough. You don't have to fulfill stereotypes in order to be Native enough. And inclusiveness, integrity, acting with truthfulness and quality in all facets, healing harm caused by generations of colonialism, breaking down artificial barriers between Sugpiaq people or between Native people just in general. I love that this program breaks down those barriers. So that is something that we have in common for sure. Compassion for where each Sugpiaq is in their journey, and respect for our elders, our culture, the environment, and all people, including ourselves. So that kind of just helps steer our organization. And I think it's one of those things where you can take these ideas and you can really start to apply them to the classroom. And we'll get into that in a little bit. And so a lot of the choices that we made in creating our mission, vision, and value statement are data informed. And so sometimes we use self-analysis tools like SWOT, strength, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, or PESTLE, political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal regulatory. So those are something you can look those up and use those. They're sort of tools that you use to say, hey, where do we stand? Where's some of our strengths, weaknesses, et cetera. And then also gathering data from key stakeholders, including our own culture, our ancestors. We consider them to be a stakeholder in our organization, community members, people who are actively involved in our organization, and funders, which have mainly been Alaska Native corporations, just making sure that we're including their point of view. So, with the community, our own community, we send out surveys, and they can, it doesn't have to be data in kind of the traditional way that you think of data. They can be long form answers, which is generally what we're collecting. Some of it is data, which is, what's your Native village? What's your Native corporation that you're a member or descendant of, a shareholder or descendant of? But a lot of it's long form answers, which we find to be probably the most informative about forming our mission, vision, and values and the direction that we want to take things for the future. We also like to look at our funders. We want to, because we're getting funding from these folks, so we want to make sure that our mission, vision, and values align with theirs. And so we do that. And that's Bristol Bay Native Corporation and Koniag for the most part for right now. And we use some of their tools that they have, like surveys and stuff like that they've done. So, and this is where I think we can really start to talk about, so how do we use that kind of stuff to talk about how can you apply this to the classroom? And so I had shared the personal mission, vision, and values. If you have your personal, for yourself, mission, vision, and values kind of solidified in your mind, what kind of organization you want to work for and things like that. But also, how can we apply that to the classroom? And so if you have each person in your classroom create their own personal mission, vision, and value statements, then you guys can create a classroom mission, vision, and values. And when maybe there's behavior that isn't behavior that is conducive for reaching those goals that you guys have set for yourselves, you can go back and say, hey, how is your behavior lining up with your personal mission, vision, and value statement? How's it lining up with our classroom value statement? So really almost you could probably get folks to align themselves, you know, and help things progress and move forward. So some of those things, and I sent out a PDF to your organizers that they can send out to you guys, or you guys can request. And so it's crafting your personal vision and value statement, but looking for identity cornerstones, culture, family, spirituality might be some of those cornerstone things that really make you who you are. Key life experiences, things that have happened in your family, you know, marriages, things like that. Work, maybe you got a promotion, or maybe you were fired. Education, you graduated, or you might be graduating. And things like that. So some of those key life experiences, and then defining your passion. What are your talents, and what have become personal passions for yourself? You know, for me, I just love being next to bodies of water. It's a passion. It's not necessarily a talent, but it's something that I love to do. And if I need to get back to kind of a square, like a nice calm place, that's a place that I'm going to go to help me get myself there. And so that way, when I see that maybe I'm not living my values and stuff, I can think, oh, look, I've identified here that that's something that helps me get back on track for that, right? What are other things? I love to sing. And so singing might be something that I might do as well, right? Organizing community, that's a talent that I have. So anyway, and when you do those things, it kind of makes you happy. I also think, you know, when you have things that are challenging, solving problems is part of how we feel content. So what do you do where you solve a problem? Because that makes you feel content. And then identifying 5 core values for yourself. You know, I listed a bunch on the handout, which is honesty, responsibility, creativity, integrity, courage, loyalty, contentment, compassion, accountability, kindness, spirituality, humility, intelligence, competence, things like that, right? And you can Google values and, you know, find even more that might, you know, really resonate for you. So find 5 that you feel like really resonate for you, and define why they resonate for you. And then identify what motivates you. Why do you do what you do? And when it's difficult, why do you keep going? Why do you keep on doing it? You know, because sometimes it's not easy to continue to go, because you're not always going to have people cheerleading you. So what makes it worth it? And writing that down, so that way when you come to those bumps in the road, you can look back and say, okay, this is why we're doing this. You know, why are we doing the grow your own program, right? When the going gets tough, or maybe you lose funding or something happens, you think, oh, wait, but it is amazing, because these students are incredible. They're just incredible human beings, and they are going to help develop more leaders, and we need you guys. So anyway, and then write a short personal vision and value statement. Create a statement that describes your values and strengths and your goals, and think about how you can leverage your values and strengths to achieve those goals. So that's basically it. If you have this, it will help you make a lot of decisions in life. You know, you might come to an organization and you'll read their mission, vision, and value statement, and maybe their mission is, our mission is to make a ton of money, regardless of what this does to the environment. You know, we just don't care. And you might say, that just doesn't align with my own mission, vision, and values for my life. And it might help you, either make a choice that you want to be not working for them, or it might help you say, hey, I actually feel really passionate about this organization and I want to help take this organization in a new direction, which I would say that that's probably the next thing, is that if the school that you guys decide to work for has a team that helps them with their strategic plans, okay, which is essentially their mission, vision, and values, right? It's where they want to go in the future. You might consider being on that team. That's something that you want to do, because if they're not lining up with your mission, vision, and values, you can help steer them in that direction by being on those committees.
I love so much that not only for like young people entering the profession, right, to have their own personal mission, vision, and values, but for people stepping into organizations and educational communities to really help shape that. I think that is such beautiful advice. I was going to ask you, actually, speaking of advice, like what words of encouragement would you have for young people or for aspiring educators? You don't have to be young to be an educator, obviously. But I think that you're offering that you encourage people to know what their values are and to be in alignment with that.
Mm-hmm.
In order to, to be able to keep going when things get tough. I have another question for you though. So I am wondering, for people who are just starting to reconnect with culture, or for people who have been raised outside of their homelands, I think your organization really focuses on, what kinds of words of advice or encouragement would you give for people who are just trying to reconnect?
That the part of our mission, vision, and values, the value that says you are Native enough, and where you're at is fine, right? So number one, just being okay, and not feeling like a fraud, because I think the system is designed to make you feel like you're not Native. That's the goal. That's what colonialism is doing. And so, the system says, oh, you can't wear those earrings. You can't wear that t-shirt. You can't wear a t-shirt that says like Native pride or something like that, because you're really white and everybody knows that, and so to say, you know what, actually, I am a Native person and I want to do the things for my ancestors that they couldn't do. So when my ancestors were being hit for speaking their language, I'm going to learn it. When my grandmother didn't teach any of her kids or grandkids our language because she was protecting us, because she didn't want us to be hurt in the way that she was, like, we get to go and learn it for her, and take that back. And that's with all of the things, like all of the ways of being, right? But when you are displaced from your place, you're not on your native lands, recognizing the people whom, I'm on Duwamish Nunaniatua. So I'm on the lands of the Duwamish people, and recognizing that, but aligning my responsibilities with that as well. And so when you align your responsibility, it's little things like, do you just throw your recyclables into the trash? No, right? When you leave a room, are you going to leave the light on? No, it's those little things of being environmentally responsible that we can also do. But then there's big things, which is, make connections with local tribes and, go out and support. And when they have their powwow days, go there and be there and be supportive and try to be a part of community. It's not always easy and you're not always necessarily welcome, but you can make those efforts, right? So yeah, I suppose little things like that, but also just taking yourself outdoors and connecting.
Thank you. I love those words of wisdom, actually. So let's see. My other question would be, for our aspiring educators, but I think you also answered it, but I want to see if you want to add anything. Why do you think that Indigenous education, Indigenous centered values are so important to teach and to share?
Well, a little bit of that, right? Like centering the land. Um, something that my sister and I have been talking about is she asked an elder to give a land acknowledgement. And when the elder gave the land acknowledgement, it was not what was expected, but the elder acknowledged the land. They said the land provides for us. The land gives us the fish. The land gives us life. And because of that, we have a responsibility to stand up and say no to things like pebble mine, to say no to things that are going to be harmful, not just to the land, but then that trickles down to our way of being, right? So I think that there's so many ways in which no matter what your background is like we can work collaboratively with those ideas. Back in the 80s, it was Timber Fish and Wildlife Agreement, right? And that was an instance where you saw different organizational groups coming together to work collaboratively for forest ecology. So anyway, yes, I don't know if that really answered your question, but
I
because
think
it's a really big question. So there's like, it's, but yeah, like basically being in land, acknowledging land.
Yeah, I think you grounded us beautifully, Jessica. Beautifully. I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing what you do, for your work, for your passion. And yeah, keep doing it, girl.
Koyana.